One man wrote over 1,100 works of music, enough that if you performed them back to back without sleeping, it would take you nearly 2 weeks, and in his entire lifetime, fewer than a dozen were ever published. But here's the question nobody's asking. What if Bach wasn't just prolific? What if he was constructed differently? An energetic architecture designed to receive and transmit frequencies that the rest of us can barely perceive. Today, we're reading the energetic design of Johann Sebastian Bach through the lens of human design, and what we found changes everything about how we understand his genius. Bach wasn't just composing music, he was downloading architectural blueprints from a frequency most humans never access. His defined throat center, the center of manifestation, was so powerful that when he sat at the organ, he wasn't performing, he was transmitting. When we map Bach's chart, one thing becomes undeniable. He carried a defined sacral center, the engine of life force energy, connected directly to a defined throat. In human design, this configuration creates what we call a manifesting generator, a being whose creative output, once aligned, becomes nearly unstoppable. But here's where it gets interesting. Bach also carried a completely open solar plexus, the emotional center. He could feel everything, every frequency in the room, every unspoken grief of the congregation, and he had no choice but to channel it directly onto the page. But before we go further, you need to understand something. The frequencies Bach channeled weren't born in cathedrals, they were forged in loss. Bach was orphaned by age 10, both parents dead within a year of each other. He was shipped off to live with an older brother, a church organist who treated him, by most accounts, with cold indifference. This is what alignment looks like in its earliest form. Before the cathedrals, before the cantatas, a 10-year-old boy, alone in a candlelit room, copying forbidden sheet music by moonlight because his brother had locked it away. His open solar plexus, that emotional center designed to amplify the feelings of others, was already absorbing grief, rejection, isolation, but his defined sacral was already responding, already generating, already building. Bach's output defies explanation unless you understand the sacral engine. He walked 250 miles to hear a single organist play. He produced a new cantata every week for years. At one church in Leipzig, he was expected to compose, rehearse, and perform a new piece of sacred music every single Sunday. The average music student today spends months on a single composition. Bach did it in 5 days, over and over and over. Sound familiar? If you carry a defined sacral, you already know this rhythm. When the energy is there, you create. You don't negotiate with it. You don't wait for inspiration. The energy demands to be used. The difference between Bach and a burned out modern creator isn't the volume of output, it's the alignment. Bach never questioned whether he should be composing. He responded every single time. But the output alone doesn't explain why Bach endures. Plenty of composers were prolific. Most are footnotes. Bach is Bach because of his open centers, specifically that undefined solar plexus. Your open centers are not your weaknesses. They are your empathy engines. Every Sunday, Bach stood before a congregation carrying grief, fear, hope, desperation, and his open emotional center absorbed all of it. He didn't just write music that sounded beautiful, he wrote music that felt like whatever you were carrying when you walked through the door. His cantatas weren't performances, they were emotional translations. He transmuted the collective frequency of an entire congregation, sometimes an entire city, directly onto the page. That's not composition, that's alchemy. Here's the part of the story that should stop you cold. Bach died in 1750 at age 65, and within 20 years, his music had been almost completely forgotten. The Baroque era was over. Classical was in. Mozart, Haydn, the clean lines, the balanced phrases. Bach was considered old-fashioned, academic, irrelevant. His manuscripts sat in archives. His grave was unmarked. His own sons, several of whom became successful composers, had moved on to the new style. For nearly 80 years, Johann Sebastian Bach was nobody, a footnote, a name on old sheet music that nobody played. But his energetic blueprint hadn't finished its work. His defined throat center had transmitted something so structurally perfect, so mathematically resonant, that it could not stay buried. And in 1829, a young composer named Felix Mendelssohn pulled the St. Matthew Passion out of the archives and conducted it for the first time in nearly a century. The audience didn't just applaud, they wept. But what specifically did Bach encode into his music that made it indestructible? Musicians and mathematicians have been trying to answer this for 3 centuries, and the answer keeps landing on the same word: structure. Bach didn't just write melodies. He built cathedrals in sound. His fugues are mathematical proofs. His counterpoint operates like sacred geometry, multiple independent melodic lines, each complete on its own, yet interlocking into a whole that transcends any single part. In human design terms, this is the signature of a defined throat center channeling from a defined sacral. The output isn't random inspiration, it's architecture. Every note placed with the precision of a master builder who can see the entire structure before laying the first stone. This is what alignment looks like at the highest level. The ability to hold complexity without collapsing into chaos. Bach could write a 6-part fugue, 6 independent voices, each following its own logic, each relating to every other voice, and make it sound like one singular inevitable truth. So, what does a long-dead German composer have to do with your life today? Everything. Bach's blueprint reveals a truth about sovereignty that most people never grasp. He never had a patron. He never had a manager. He never had what we would call a career strategy. He followed his sacral response, composing because the energy left him no choice. And he trusted that the architecture was sound, even when the recognition didn't come. He died in relative obscurity, but the frequency he transmitted was so pure, so structurally perfect, that it cut through nearly a century of silence and re-emerged as the foundation of all Western music. Your sovereignty works the same way. The work you're doing right now, the content, the service, the art, may not be recognized today, but if it's aligned with your energetic blueprint, it carries a frequency that time cannot erase. The world stage is still waiting. Your unique part in it is already written into your design. If you're watching this and recognizing that pull, that sense that your creative output isn't optional, that something bigger is moving through you, then you already know you carry a unique energetic blueprint. The question isn't whether you have one. The question is whether you know how to read it. Take our free quantum clarity quiz. In under 3 minutes, you'll discover your human design type and begin to understand the architecture that's been operating beneath your entire life. The link is in the description below, because Bach didn't become Bach by copying someone else's blueprint. He became Bach by aligning with his own. In 1722, Bach completed the Well-Tempered Clavier, a collection of preludes and fugues in every major and minor key. It was, in his words, for the profit and use of musical youth desirous of learning, and especially for the pastime of those already skilled in this study. That's it. No grand pronouncement, no declaration of genius, just a builder who had finished his work and was offering it to whoever was ready to receive it. 300 years later, we're still receiving it. Not because Bach was famous, not because he was well connected, not because the algorithm of his time pushed him to the top of the feed, but because his energetic architecture was so perfectly aligned that the frequency he transmitted could not be stopped, not by obscurity, not by changing tastes, not by death itself. He transmuted his devotion directly onto the page, and in doing so, created a body of work so structurally sound that it would take the world centuries to fully process. This is what sovereignty looks like, not the sovereignty of recognition or applause, the sovereignty of a frequency that outlasts everything. Click the link in the description to take our free clarity quiz, because the world stage is still waiting and your unique part in it is already written into your design. All the world's a stage and all the men and women merely players. One man wrote those words, another man 2 centuries later proved them true, not by seeking the stage, but by building cathedrals of sound so perfectly aligned that the stage came looking for him. Your frequency is no different. Your blueprint is no less intricate. The only question is whether you'll align with it or spend your life wondering why the music never came.